Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a cable stitch vest. This vest is loaded with all the fixins: classy cables, studded textures, and a mock neck and luxurious hood. All the best for this vest. Speaking of, if you love this vest, we have more where this came from. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns, including many vests, with even more dropping weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 325 grams of yarn, and that's 725 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you're more of an introvert or an extrovert. I am 100% an introvert. I actually don't remember the last time I left my house, and I really like it that way. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows: chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook. Then we're all going to start by making an odd number chain that reaches from mid collarbone across our chest to mid collarbone, but keeping in mind that it does need to be more than at least 33 chains, which is roughly 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now I actually need 8 inches or 20 centimeters, so I will be making a chain of 33. But if you need something wider than 8 inches or 20 centimeters, continue to add 4 chains to my 33 until you get the total width that you want. And we're adding chains this way to ensure that we all end on the same stitch when it comes to doing our alpine stitch detail. So now that we have our chain, we're going to do our first half double crochet row. So blocking off that last chain, and we're going to do a chain 2. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. From here, we're all going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Then insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. That's our first half double crochet. Let's do another one. Yarn over into that next chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Alright, so everyone's row 1 is complete. Now our second row is going to be another half double crochet row. So from where we're at, let's all chain 2 and flip our work. And all we're going to do is put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Alrighty, so we are back, and our first 2 rows for our cable stitch detail are complete. And now we're going to be inserting our stitch markers into some places just to mark off where each of our sections for this cable stitch detail is going to be. Now the instructions are going to be roughly the same for every size, so we're all going to start by making sure that our hook is on the right. Then, counting in from the right side, we're going to find our middle stitch. So for those of you that had a chain of 33 like me, I inserted my stitch marker into the 17th stitch, that is my middle stitch. And now we're going to start inserting our stitch markers into the detail on the right side of our center stitch marker stitch. So counting from that middle stitch, we're going to start by counting out 4 stitches and insert our stitch marker into there. So we want to make sure that we're not actually counting that stitch marker stitch, and here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and insert your stitch marker into there. Now counting from the edge of our piece, so from where our hook is, we're going to count in 8 stitches, and then insert our stitch marker into there. And then this side of our cable stitch detail is complete. Now taking a look at the left side, what we're going to do, we're going to start by counting out 4 stitches from the middle stitch marker stitch, but this time we will be counting that middle stitch. And then from the outer edge, we're now going to count in 9 stitches. So count in your 9 and then insert your stitch marker into there. Now that we have all these stitch markers into place, we can get started on the actual cable stitch detail. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Alrighty, so getting started on our row 3, our cable stitch details are always going to start and end with the same twists. So this is going to be the same for every size. So let's get this started. Now for each of our cable stitch rows, each of our cable stitches is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So as an example, we're currently working on our row 3. We're going to be inserting our hook into our row 1. So it's all going to start with a front post treble crochet. And it's going to be our dividing stitch. So we're all going to yarn over twice. Taking a look at our row 1, we're going to find the first half double crochet, making sure that we are not counting that chain 2. We're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that half double crochet and bring it through the other side. Then from here, we're going to yarn over and pull through. Then we're all going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2, and that is our first front post treble crochet completed. Then what we're going to do is a set of 2 front post treble crochets again. So we're going to yarn over twice, preparing for that. Then taking a look at our row 1 again, we're going to skip that next available stitch, and then put 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2. So into this one, and into the one after that. So we're going to skip 1. Underneath that next, bring your hook underneath and through the other side. Yarn over and pull through. Then again, yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Another front post treble crochet into the following, so yarn over twice. Into that next stitch from our row 1, yarn over, pull through. Then again, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then when we have those 2 stitches completed, we're going to put 1 front post treble crochet into that stitch that we skipped. So yarn over twice. Insert your hook into that skip stitch, through the other side, and pull through. Then again, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now we have our first twist completed. Now we're going to be doing another twist right after this one. So again, our dividing stitch isn't going to be included, so we're going to yarn over twice, preparing for a front post treble crochet, skip that following stitch, and then into the stitch right after that, 1 front post treble crochet again. So pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, then another front post treble crochet into the following, so yarn over twice again. Underneath that next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then to finish up our twist the same way that we did the previous one, 1 front post treble crochet into that skip stitch. So yarn over twice. Bring your hook down underneath the body of that skipped stitch, through the other side, and pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now we're going to close off our twist section because we should be near our stitch marker stitch with a front post treble crochet, kind of like how we started this row off with, so that's our dividing stitch. So yarn over twice. Finding that next available stitch from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, yarn over, and pull through. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And now the twist detail for our row 3 is complete. So now that our twist detail is completed, we're going to get started on our alpine. So our alpine stitch detail is going to be worked into our previous odd number row, so our row 1 again. So how that's going to work, we're all going to start, no matter what size we're making, with a front post double crochet. So yarn over. Into that following stitch from our row 1, we're going to insert your hook underneath the body of that stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Now once we have these 3 loops on our hook, what we're all going to do is pull up nice and tall so that we can get the same height as our twist detail. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now that is our first stitch for our alpine stitch detail. Now our alpine stitch detail is going to alternate between a front post double and a half double crochet. So to do the first half double crochet for this section, we're going to start by counting out 9 stitches from our previous row. And it's going to be 9 because we just used up a total of 9 stitches here. So counting this out together, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then into that following stitch, which should be our 10th, insert with a half double crochet. So insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops. Now that is our alpine stitch detail. Let's do this again. Yarn over. We are going to skip that following stitch from our previous odd number row because this half double crochet counts as that stitch. So into the next, we're going to do another front post double. So bring your hook down underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Then yarn over and pull through. Again, when we have those 3 loops on our hook, pull up nice and tall, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we're going to do our half double. So yarn over. We are going to skip that following stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the following, insert with a half double crochet. Now all we're going to do is continue to repeat our front post double and half double crochet the same way that we just did that last set of stitches until we are worked into the stitch right before our stitch marker. But once we have this, I will meet you guys back so we can get started on our middle cable stitch detail. We are back. Now that everyone's alpine stitch detail is complete, let's get started on our cable stitch detail within the middle. So it's always going to start and end with a front post treble crochet, which is our dividing stitch, kind of like how we framed off our twist with our dividing stitches as well. So all we're going to do is into that next available stitch from our row 1, do a front post treble crochet. So we're all going to yarn over twice, finding that next available stitch. We're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Then from here, we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2, and that is our dividing stitch. Now we're going to do our actual cable stitch detail. So how that's going to work is we're all going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets. So we're all going to start with a yarn over of 3. And then taking a look at our row 1 again, we're going to skip the following 2 stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, we're skipping over those. And then into the following 2 stitches, this one and this one, we're going to be putting 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. So again, skip 1, skip 2, into that next with 1 front post double treble crochet, so pull through. Then from here, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook again. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. That is our first front post double treble crochet. We're going to be doing another one into that following stitch. So yarn over, 1, 2, 3 times again. Underneath the body of that stitch, insert your hook underneath and through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now those are our first 2 stitches for our cable. Then we're going to be putting 1 front post double treble crochet into the 2 stitches that we skipped over. So yarn over 3 times again. We're going to bring our hook down into that first skip stitch, through the other side, and pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2, 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 and then 1 more front post double treble crochet into that skip stitch. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times again. Into that last skip stitch, bring your hook underneath and through the other side and pull through. Then from here, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Then to finish off our cable stitch detail, into the following 2 stitches from our row 1, 1 front post treble crochet into each of those. So yarn over twice now. Into that next stitch, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, yarn over, pull through. Then again, yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Another one into that following stitch, so yarn over twice, underneath, and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Then all we're going to do is close off our cable stitch detail with another dividing stitch, which is always a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice once more, insert your hook underneath that next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and now everyone's cable stitch detail in the middle is complete. So now we're going to do our alpine stitch detail. So what we're going to do is start with a front post double crochet. So we're all going to yarn over once. Into that following stitch from our row 1, bring your hook down underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Then again, when we're doing our front post double crochets for our alpine stitch detail, we're going to pull up nice and tall, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now from here, we're going to do our half double crochet. Now again, we're going to skip 9 stitches from our previous row because we just took up a total of 9 stitches here, counting from our first dividing stitch across our cable to this dividing stitch and our front post double crochet that we just did. So counting from our last available stitch from our previous row, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then into the following, insert with 1 half double crochet. And now that we have that, we're going to continue to do our front post double and half double crochet until our next stitch marker is reached. So since I just have a few stitches left, I'm going to do that with you. Starting with the yarn over, our next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. So I will be skipping that next stitch from our row 1 because this half double crochet counts as that stitch, and then underneath the next, bring your hook underneath and through the other side and pull through. Then from here, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then a half double crochet. So we're always going to skip that next stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the next with 1 half double crochet. And we're going to continue to do our front post double and half double crochet until our stitch marker is reached. And just as a really quick tip, we should have the same amount of stitches for our alpine stitch detail that we had on this side. So for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 4 alpine stitch details over here, and on this side I had a total of 4 as well. So once when everything is even on both sides, we're ready to close off this row with our twists. So like I said in one of our previous clips, our twists are going to be done pretty much the same way that the first set of twists were done at the beginning of this row. So let's get that started. We're all going to start by doing a yarn over of 2 because that is our dividing stitch. I'm going to find that next available stitch from my previous odd number row, which is our row 1 still because we're not done with our row 3 yet, and then we're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. That is our dividing stitch. Now to do our twists, we're all going to yarn over twice because our twists are always done with our front post treble crochets. Taking a look at our row 1, we're going to skip that next stitch, and then into the stitch right after that, we're going to do our first front post treble crochet. So pull through, and again yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. There's our first one. We're going to do another front post treble crochet into the following, yarn over twice, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, and 2, and then to finish up this first twist, 1 front post treble crochet into that stitch that we skipped. So yarn over twice, bring your hook back underneath that skipped stitch through the other side and pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first twist. Let's do our next twist together. It's going to be done pretty much the same way, so yarn over twice again. Skip that next stitch from our previous odd number row. Underneath the next, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, another front post treble crochet into the next, so yarn over twice, underneath the body, through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, then one front post treble into that skip stitch, so yarn over twice, underneath the body of that skip stitch, through the other side and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now both of our twists are complete. Now we're going to finish off this twist detail with our dividing stitch, which is a front post treble, so yarn over twice, into that next stitch from our row 1, which should be the second to last stitch, bring your hook underneath, through the other side and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until there's 1 loop left, and then to finish off the entirety of the row, 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row, so yarn over, insert your hook underneath and through the other side, pull through, then yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and that half double crochet is just to make sure that everything is secured down. Now everyone's row 3 is complete. So we should all end up with the same amount of stitches as chains that we made, because we aren't doing any increases or decreases yet. But once when everything is the same, everyone's even number row is always going to be a half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch to reach the end of the row. Alrighty, so we are back. Everyone's row 4 is complete, which was just our half double crochet row. Now we're ready to get started on our row 5, so let's all chain 2 and flip your work. Now everyone's cable stitch detail is always going to start with our twist, and the twists are not going to change. It's always going to be done exactly the same way, so let's do this together. It's always going to start with a front post treble crochet worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working our row 5, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 3. So let's yarn over twice. Inserting your hook underneath the first stitch from our row 3, which should be our front post treble crochet, we're going to bring our hook underneath and pull through. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook again. And that is our first stitch, or our dividing stitch. Next, to do our twists. Yarn over twice again. We're going to skip that first stitch from our previous odd number row, and then underneath the next, which might be a little buried underneath, but you just need to separate your stitches to find it. You're going to bring your hook underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Again, yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Then into that following stitch, another front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice. Bring your hook underneath that next stitch, through the other side and pull through. Then yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Then, to get the twist look, we're going to work into that skip stitch, so yarn over twice. Bring your hook underneath that skipped stitch, insert your hook, and through the other side, then yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2 till we all have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our first twist completed. Now let's do our second twist a little bit faster. Yarn over twice. Skip that next stitch, and then into the following with 1 front post treble crochet, into that following stitch with yet another front post treble crochet, then into that skip stitch with a front post treble crochet to get that twist look. Now that that second twist is complete, we're going to finish off this twist detail with our dividing stitch. So yarn over twice, underneath that following stitch with a front post treble crochet. And this is our twist detail completed. So now that our twist detail for our row 5 is complete, we're all going to get started on our alpine stitch detail. Now the alpine stitch detail, the idea of it is going to be the same as our previous row, but the stitches need to be staggered. So since we started off our alpine stitch detail with a front post double crochet, we're going to start this one with a half double crochet. So what we're all going to do is skip 8 stitches from our previous row, and then into the following, insert with a half double crochet. We're skipping 8 stitches because we just took up a total of 8 stitches for this twist detail. So counting out our previous row, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Into the following, start with a half double crochet. So insert, pull through, then yarn over, pull through all 3. Then we're going to do our front post double crochet. So yarn over, and still working into our previous odd number row, we're going to insert our hook underneath our previous alpine stitch details, half double crochet, because remember our stitches need to be staggered. So finding the half double crochet from our previous row, which should be directly underneath that following stitch, bring your hook underneath and through the other side. Then yarn over and pull through, pull up nice and tall, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now our first alpine stitch set is complete, which was just a half double and front post double. Let's do the next one. We're going to skip that following stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the next, insert with a half double crochet. Then we're going to do our front post double, which is going to be worked into our previous alpine stitch details half double crochet. So yarn over, into the half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch detail, insert in through the other side and pull through. Then when we have these 3 loops, pull up tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our half double crochet and front post double crochet until we are ready to do our cable stitch detail. And as a really quick tip, we should have the same amount of stitches for this alpine stitch detail that we had for the previous alpine stitch detail. And now that we're ready to get started on our middle cable stitch detail, like I said in the previous clip, it's going to get started with a front post treble crochet or our dividing stitch. So we're going to yarn over twice, finding that last stitch from our previous cable stitch detail, which should be our previous odd number rows dividing stitch. Bring your hook underneath, through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Now from here, we're going to get started on the actual cable stitch detail. So our repeat of row 5's cable is going to start with a set of 2 front post treble crochets. So yarn over twice. Into that following stitch, we're just going to be putting 1 front post treble crochet into each of the next 2. So there's 1 front post treble crochet. This is our dividing stitch. This is our first cable stitch, and then into the following with a second one, pull through. There's our front post treble crochet completed. And now that that is finished, we're going to do our actual twist portion. So that's going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets. So yarn over 3 times now. We're going to be skipping the following 2 stitches from our previous cable stitch row. So skip 1, skip 2, and then into that following with 1 front post double treble crochet. So insert and pull through. Now, just like before, yarn over, pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. And then another front post double treble crochet into the following. So yarn over 3 times again. Underneath that following, insert your hook, pull through, and then again yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. And this is what we should have. Next, we're going to work on the actual twist detail. So what we're going to do is put 1 front post double treble crochet into those 2 skip stitches, but now we're going to be working in through that window that we just made for ourselves. So we're all going to start with a yarn over of 3. So here's 1, 2, and 3. We're going to make sure that we're hanging on to our working yarn because it can very easily fall off our hook. And what we're going to do is pull our hook down towards us, finding these 2 skip stitches in through that window. So we're going to pull this down, and in through that window we're going to find our first and second skip stitch. Now inserting your hook underneath the first skip stitch, we're going to bring our hook back, underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, yarn over, and pull through. And again, this is per usual, yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. There's our first, and this is what we should have so far. We have one more skip stitch left to work into, so yarn over 3 times again. Hang on to your working yarn and pull your hook down towards yourself, finding that last skip stitch. Bring your hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Yarn over and pull through. Then again, yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Now this is our cable stitch detail. But our cable stitch detail isn't complete until we put our dividing stitch down. So yarn over twice, into that next stitch, insert with a front post treble crochet. And everyone's row 5 middle cable stitch should be complete. And now we're going to do our alpine stitch detail. Like I said, it's going to be a repeat of our first cable stitch detail that we did here. So we're going to get started with a half double crochet. Now we're starting with our half double crochet because remember our stitches need to be staggered from our previous alpine stitch row. And what we're going to do is count 9 stitches from our previous row. And it's going to be 9 stitches because we are counting that last stitch from our previous alpine stitch detail, which is our front post double crochet, plus the 8 stitches that we just did for our middle cable stitch detail. So counting from our previous row's last available stitch, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then into the next, which should be the 10th, insert with your first half double crochet. Then we're going to do our first front post double. So yarn over and into the next stitch from our previous alpine stitch detail, which should be a half double crochet. Insert your hook underneath and through the other side. Yarn over and pull through. Then pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. And again, we're going to do another set. So yarn over. We're going to skip that next stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch. And then into the next, insert with 1 half double. And then a front post double into the next. So yarn over. Finding that next stitch from our previous odd number row, which should be a half double crochet. Insert your hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side and pull through. Pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and we're going to continue on with our half double and front post double crochet until we're ready to finish off with our second twist detail. Now again, we should have the same amount of stitches as our first alpine stitch detail over here, and we should end on the same stitch. So since this last stitch for my alpine stitch detail on this side was a front post double, on this side it's going to be a front post double as well. And the second twist detail for every cable stitch row is going to be the same. So let's get that started. It's always going to start with our dividing stitch, so yarn over twice, into that following stitch, which should be the dividing stitch from our previous cable stitch row. Insert with your front post treble. So pull through 2, pull through 2. Now since this is going to be the same way that we did the first one, we're going to do this a little bit quicker. So yarn over twice, preparing for a front post treble. Skip that next stitch and into the next. Insert with 1 front post treble crochet. Into that next with another front post treble crochet. And then into that skip stitch with another front post treble. Now our first twist is complete. Let's do the second one. Yarn over twice, skip that next stitch and underneath the next, which I need to separate mine a little bit. Insert your hook with 1 front post treble. Into the next with another front post treble. And then into that skip stitch with another front post treble. Then to close off this twist detail with a front post treble, which is our dividing stitch. Then to close off the entirety of the row with our half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. And this is our row 5 complete. And every even number row from here is going to be a half double crochet row. So chain 2 flip your work and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. We should all still have the same amount of stitches as the original chains that we made, since we still aren't doing any increases or decreases. Alrighty, so we are back. Everyone's row 6 is complete, and now it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6. Now I'm just going to get started on the following cable stitch row with you guys, just to make sure that we have everything down. But if you guys need timestamps for each of these rows or each of these sections, they will all be linked in the description. So since our row 6 is complete, we're going to get started on our row 7, which is going to be a repeat of our row 3. So we're going to chain 2 and flip. So we're always going to start off our cable stitch row with our twist, and we're going to do this a little bit quicker. So getting started with our dividing stitch. Yarn over twice. Finding that first stitch from our previous odd number row, insert your hook into the body of that stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2 till we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Then to do our twist, yarn over twice. Skip that first stitch, and then into the next, insert with our first front post treble crochet. Into that next stitch with another front post treble crochet. And then 1 front post treble crochet into that skip stitch. That is our first twist completed. Our second twist is going to be done exactly the same way as this one, so go ahead and finish this one up. Our second twist is completed. We're going to close off this twist detail with our dividing stitch, which is always a front post treble. Yarn over twice into that next stitch. Now our twist is completed. Getting started on our alpine stitch detail, we're going to start it with a front post double crochet because this is a repeat of row 3. But if you don't quite know which stitch to start with, what you're going to do is just do the opposite from what our previous alpine stitch detail stitch was. So taking a look at my first alpine stitch detail from my previous row, it was a half double crochet. Since my stitches need to be staggered, I'm going to do a front post double. So yarn over, underneath the body of that half double crochet, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to half double crochet into the next, and we are going to be skipping 9 stitches because we just took up a total of 9 stitches here. So into that 10th, insert with a half double. Then continue on with your front post double and half double until we're ready to do our middle stitch, until we're ready to do our middle cable. We are now at our middle cable stitch detail. So since this is a repeat of our row 3, it is always going to start with a front post treble because that is our dividing stitch. Then what we're going to do is yarn over 3 times, preparing for a front post double treble crochet. We're going to skip the following 2 stitches into the next with 1 front post double treble, into the following with another front post double treble, then 1 front post double treble crochet into the 2 skip stitches. And then from here, just to close this repeat of row 3's cable off, 1 front post treble crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then closing off this cable stitch detail with another front post treble because that's our dividing stitch. And that is so far our repeat of row 3. Then we're going to do our alpine stitch detail that matches the first one, then our twist detail, then close off the row with a half double crochet. Every even number row is always going to be a half double crochet, and that is pretty much it. Like I said, if you need to go back and see any of these sections, each of these timestamps will be linked in the description. And all we're going to do is continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until this reaches the corner of our underarm. So we're going to be placing this first row where we like the bottom of this top to be. So for me, it's going to be a crop top, so at my waist. And like I said, continuing to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we reach the corner of our underarm, and I'll meet you back right when we're about to get started on a repeat of row 3. Alright, so we are back. I have my cable stitch detail all complete. Now I have a total of 30 rows and my height is roughly 9 inches or 23 centimeters, and now we're all going to get started with our first few decreased rows together. So from where we're at, let's all chain 2 and flip. So I'm just going to do the first few rows with you, and all it's going to be is basically taking the first 2 and last 2 stitches of every row and just doing a decrease into there, but everything else will be pretty much the same. So getting started on this following row, which should be a repeat of our row 3, we're all going to start with a chain 2 and flip. So getting started on this row, this is going to be a decrease of 2 front post treble crochets. So what we're going to do is yarn over twice. Then taking a look at our previous cable stitch row, we're going to insert our hook underneath the first and the second stitch at the same time. That's going to be how we decrease. So bring your hook down underneath that first stitch and also underneath that second stitch, yarn over and pull through. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So this is per usual. And then from here, we're going to basically do a repeat of our row 3. But into the following 2 stitches that we have, we're going to do another twist, but it's going to be smaller because we just have these 2 stitches to work into. So yarn over twice. We're going to skip that following stitch and into the next. Insert with a front post treble. Into the stitch that we skipped over, a front post treble. And I will meet you all back when we have our last twist and dividing stitch left to do. Alright, so we are back. I've made my way all the way down with my repeat of row 3. I've left my last twist and dividing stitch. Now what we're all going to do from here is basically mirror what we started this row off with. So we're going to start with a little baby twist, kind of like the one that we did on this side. So what we're going to do over our last twist is yarn over twice, skip that next stitch and into the last with a front post treble crochet. And since we need to leave our last 2 post stitches for our decrease, we're going to work into that skip stitch with another front post treble crochet. So this is our little baby twist. Now from here we can do our decrease. So yarn over twice, into that second to last post stitch, and into that last post stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2. And then to close off this row, we're going to close it off with a half double crochet. So now that our first decrease row is complete, we are going to want to insert our stitch markers into the beginning and into the end of this row. And we should have 2 less stitches than all of our previous rows. And now we're going to do a half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So we are back. Our second row for our decrease section is complete, which was just a half double crochet row. We're just going to do the following row together just to make sure that we have the decreases down within the beginning and the end of the row, and let you do the rest on your own. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. So like I said in one of our previous clips, all we're going to do is basically just do a decrease into the beginning and into the end of every row, and then everything in between should be the same. So getting this started, we're going to yarn over twice. We're going to insert our hook into that first stitch from our previous cable stitch row and underneath the second, yarn over, pull through, and then do our front post treble per usual. And then from here, we should have 1 stitch left from our previous twist. So we're just going to put 1 front post treble crochet into there. And from here, we're going to continue on with our repeat. This should be a repeat of our row 5, making our way all the way down until we have our last twist left again. Alrighty, so we are back. We've made our way all the way down with our repeat of row 5. We have left our last twist, and now we're going to do this last decrease together. So all this one is going to be is basically a mirror of the first decrease that we did. So we should all have 1, 2, 3 post stitches left. And we're going to do 1 front post treble crochet into that next stitch. Then into my second to last and last post stitch, we're going to do a decrease of 2 front post treble crochets. And then to close off the row with just 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row, and that's it. Our even number row is still going to be a half double crochet row. So from where we're at, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Now all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 with a decrease in the beginning and at the end of every cable stitch row. And all we're going to do is continue to repeat these rows until we have a neckline portion that can reach from the corner of our underarm until this reaches the base of our neck. And then I will meet you guys back right after a cable stitch row. Alright, so we are back. I have just finished up the neckline portion. I have a total of 45 rows and my total height is 13 inches or 33 centimeters. Now from where we're at, since we all should have ended right after a cable stitch row, we're going to single crochet along the edge of our piece to clean it up and so we can get started on the underarm portion. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 1 and flip. Now working into the side rows, we are going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, starting with 1 single crochet. So finding our first side row, and this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Now finding our following side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook in through there with 2 singles. So there's 1, and then into that same top loop with a second single crochet. Let's do this just once more. This is my following side row. Insert with 1 single. Then this is my following side row. Insert with 2 singles. There's 1, and then there's 2. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down until we are worked into our side row right here with our stitch marker into it. Alright, so we are back. I have just single crocheted my way all the way down. I'm at my stitch marker side row right here, and into that one I'm going to do my single crochet. Now it should be just 1 single crochet for everyone since we are alternating between 1 to 2. So into there, I'm just going to take out my stitch marker for now, insert with my 1 single crochet, and then insert your stitch marker back into that stitch because we need to know where the neckline starts. Then from here, continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way all the way down. Now since we just did 1 single crochet into that side row, into the next we're just going to continue on with our sequence, so 2 single crochets into that next stitch. And then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we are back. Our single crochet row along the edge of our cable stitch detail is complete, and now we're going to do our slip stitch rows. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work. And all we're going to do is back loop slip stitches. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that's furthest away from us. Then we're going to yarn over and gently pull through both loops. That's our first back loop slip stitch. Let's do this again. Finding that next stitch, we're going to insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Yarn over and pull through everything, and that's it. We're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we have 2 stitches left before our stitch marker. And we do want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row can be a little too tight to work into. So we've made our way all the way down with our back loop slip stitches. Now we should all have 1, 2 stitches left right before our stitch marker, and now we're going to do a decrease of 2 together. So how that's going to work is insert our hook into that second to last stitch, pull through, also insert your hook into that last stitch's back loop, and when we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to automatically yarn over and pull through all 3, and that is how we do our decrease. Now we're going to do a back loop slip stitch row all the way back down. So from here, we're going to chain 1 and flip. Now this row isn't going to have any increases or decreases, so just make your way all the way down, putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and still remember to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly. At the end of this row, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches so we can decrease together just once more. Alright, we are back. We have finished up our slip stitch row, putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way down towards the bottom. Then at the end of the row, we did a chain 1, flipped our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, leaving the last 2 so we can decrease together once more. So into that second to last back loop, we're going to insert our hook, pull through. Into that last stitch's back loop, insert your hook for 3 loops, then yarn over and automatically pull through all 3, remembering not to tug too tightly, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get an underarm portion that can stretch over to mid-underarm, and we do want to make sure that we're stretching it as if we're wearing it. I'll meet you back once we have this portion all finished up, and we all need to make sure that we're ending on an odd number of rows. And then I will meet you back right after we do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alrighty, so we are back. My side panel is complete. Now I have a total, including my single crochet row, of 13 rows. This width is roughly 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, that's unstretched, or my total width is about 10 inches or 25 centimeters, also with this unstretched. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row, and now we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did here on the other side, but for this first single crochet row, we're going to make sure that the front of the single crochet row is shown to make this piece as clean as possible. So we're going to take a look at the other side of our cable stitch detail, then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch. Then we're going to again alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, and I'll meet you back when we're worked into the side row that's right before our stitch marker right here. Alright, so we've just worked our single crochets all the way up and we're worked into the side row that's right before our stitch marker stitch. And now we're going to single crochet into that side row because we just finished up 2 single crochets here. So we're going to keep up with the same sequence that we've been doing. And we also need to insert our stitch marker into that single crochet that we just did so it can match this stitch marker on this side. Then from here, just continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alrighty, so our single crochet row for this side panel is complete. We should have the same amount of stitches as we had on this side, plus the amount of stitches that we had for the top portion and for the bottom portion, so on either side of our stitch marker should be the same as this side as well. Then we did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after our last single crochet. Then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our panel, and then we're going to repeat our back loop slip stitch rows. So just back loop slip stitch all the way up while doing a decrease of 2 into the 2 stitches before the stitch marker, then a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. We're just going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch rows for the same amount of rows that we had on this side. So on this side I had a total, including my single crochet row, of 13 rows. I will now do this side when I have a total, including my single crochet row, of 13 rows over here. When we have the same amount of rows, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. Alrighty, we are back and the entirety of our front panel is complete. Now I have a total of roughly 11.5 inches or 29 centimeters that is unstretched, and now we're going to get started on our back panel. So getting started on our back panel, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last underarm row. So for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 39 stitches, so now I'm going to make a chain of 39. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So bring your hook down into that chain. When we have those 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook. So there's 1, there's 2, let's do this again. Into that next chain, bring your hook down, yarn over, and pull through both. From here, we're going to continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, again, remembering not to tug too tightly. We are back. We've made our way all the way down with our row 1, which is just all slip stitches. Now we're going to get started on our row 2, and that's going to start with an increase as well. So how we're going to do that is start with a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a stitch for the following row. That second chain is going to count as a chain, then we're going to flip our work. So how we're going to do our increase is start by slip stitching into that second chain from our hook's back loop. So into that back loop, we're going to insert, yarn over, and again gently pull through everything on our hook. That's going to be our additional stitch for this row. Then from here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and then make your way all the way back up with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back to show you how we're going to do our increase just once more. We are back, and our first 1, 2, 3 rows are complete. Now at the end of every odd number row, we are now going to start our falling row off with an increase, and it's going to be done the same way as our previous row. So just as a refresher, we're going to start with a chain 2. First chain is going to count as a stitch for our next row. Second chain is going to count as our turning chain and flip. Then from here, into that second chain from our hook's back loop, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Then all we're going to do is continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as our front panel's underarm portion. So for those of you that have my numbers, counting from my first single crochet row down to my last, I have a total of 13 rows. I will meet you guys back when I have a total of 13 rows of this portion finished up, and then we can work on the height of our back panel together. Alrighty, so we are back. I have my underarm for my back panel finished. We all should have ended along the top, and now we're going to get started on the width of our back panel. But just to let y'all know, I have a total of 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters unstretched for my back panel's underarm. And now from here, we're all going to make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have within the front panel from this stitch marker stitch all the way up to the top. So for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 22 stitches here. So here, I'm going to make a chain 22. Then from here, we're just going to do more back loop slip stitch rows without any increases or decreases until the width that we have is roughly the same width that we have for the base of our front panel, but we do need to make sure that it's stretched out. So let's just get started on the first row together. So once we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to bring our hook down, into that chain, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. That's our first slip stitch. Let's just do one more into that next chain, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything. And that's it. We're going to continue with one slip stitch into every chain. Once we reach the body, one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then that's it. Then we're just going to continue to do our back loop slip stitch rows with absolutely no increases and no decreases until that back panel portion can stretch to roughly the same width that we have for the base of our cable stitch detail. And once we have this portion completed, making sure that we are stretching it as if we're wearing it because it does have a decent amount of stretch to it, we're all ending along the bottom so that we can finish up with our second underarm portion together. I am back and the width of my back panel is complete. Now I have a total of 52 rows. My total width is roughly 6.5 inches or 16 centimeters that is unstretched, and the width of this is roughly the same size as the width of my cable stitch detail when it's stretched. Now we're going to finish off our back panel's underarm portion. So getting this started, we all should have ended along the bottom. Then what we're going to do is insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led up to our shoulder. So if you have my numbers, I made a chain of 22. So on this side, I inserted my stitch marker into the 22nd stitch from the top. And all we're going to do is put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. I put one back loop slip into every stitch, and we have reached our stitch marker stitch. Now we're going to do decrease into the following row, so we're all going to chain 1 and flip. And just to do this decrease together, all we're going to do is insert our hook into that first stitch's back loop, pull through into that next stitch's back loop, and when we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Then from here, continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as our first underarm portion for the back panel. Then once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Now the entirety of my back panel is complete. I have a total width of roughly 8 inches or 20 centimeters that is unstretched, and now we're going to connect it to the front panel by seaming our sides. So let's place the front panel on top of our back panel. Now this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so it's going to look like another back loop slip stitch row. So we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, mainly meaning the cable stitch detail that we have for the front panel is faced up towards us. Then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We are then going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through everything, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then what we're going to do from here is start by finding that first stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Then we're going to find that next stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop. Then when we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Into that next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's it. We're going to continue with our slip stitch row, making our way all the way up, and then once we don't have any more stitches left, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side, and then I'll meet you back to get started on the neckline. Alrighty, so we are back. Now that everything is all seamed up, we're now ready to get started on our neckline. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, meaning the seams that we just did is still along the outside, and our cable stitch detail is also along the outside. Then from here, we're going to take a look at our back panel and insert our hook into the top corner stitch of the back, and we're going to start with a single crochet row working across the top of the back panel. All we're going to do is pull our yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row. So getting this started, this is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Let's find our following side row, which is this divot for me right over here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. And again, this is my following side row. It says this raised row. Find that top loop, insert my hook with just one single crochet, and just to do the next one, my following side row is this divot, so find that top loop and insert with one single. Continue with one single crochet into every side row, and I'll meet you back at this corner over here. I've made my way all the way across the top of my back panel. Now from here, we're all going to make a chain that can reach up and over our shoulder to the top corner stitch of the front panel. Now I have already measured mine out. I need roughly 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, so I made a chain 8, and once we have our chain, we're going to flip our work over to look at the front. Now to connect our chain to the front panel, we're going to single crochet into the top corner stitch of the front panel, which is going to be the top of our single crochet row. Now that is going to count as our connector and as a stitch as well. So just into that top corner stitch, insert with one single crochet. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And then from here, put one single crochet into every stitch, working our way across the top of our cable stitch detail. And our last single crochet is going to be worked into our side single crochet row right over here. We've worked our way across the top of our front panel with our single crochets. Once we reach this top corner stitch, we're then going to make the same chain that we made on this side that reached up and over our shoulder. Now for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 8. So over here, I made a chain 8 as well, and then we're going to slip stitch it into that chain space that we made when we got started on this row. So go ahead and flip your work over. So just into that first chain space, I'm going to insert my hook with a slip stitch. So once when this first single crochet row is completed, we're going to make sure of 2 things. Making sure that this row can fit around our head nicely when we're putting it on and off, and then also that our armhole that we have also formed at the same time isn't too tight. So if you try on your piece, and if this row is a little bit too loose, you're going to take away the same amount of chains on both sides, or if the entire neckline is too tight, you'll be adding the same amount of chains on both sides. And then right after that, we can do a single crochet row together. So once when this first chain row is completed, we're going to do a single crochet row just to help sturdy everything up. So right after we have slip stitched into that chain space, we're going to chain 1, and working in the same direction, just put one single crochet into every stitch and chain space, making our way all the way around. Now once when this following single crochet row is complete, that is going to be as wide as this neckline can stretch. So try your piece on, making sure that everything can still fit. And then I'll meet you guys back once when the entirety of this neckline fits nicely on us. Alright, so we are back. Our single crochet row along our neckline is complete. Now we're just going to be doing one more single crochet row, and now it's going to be within the back loops. So right after we have slip stitched into that chain space and we've made sure that everything is fitting us nicely, we're going to chain 1, and making sure that we're working in the same direction that we were previously working into, one back loop single crochet into every stitch. So just to do the first one, we're all going to find that first available stitch and insert into that back loop with a single crochet. Also into that next stitch's back loop, insert with a single crochet, and just continue doing this, making our way all the way around. While we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you back right after we slip stitch into that chain space. Alrighty, so we are back. Our back loop single crochet row is complete. Now from here, we're all going to make a chain, the length that we'd like for our mock neck to be. Now you can make this as long or as short as you like. I'd like for mine to be about medium length, so I'm going to start by making a chain 12. That's roughly 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. Once we have our chain, we're going to do a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off with the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and gently pull through both loops. And continue with one slip stitch into every chain, remembering again not to tug too tightly after every stitch. We've just put one slip stitch into every chain. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So all this is going to be is find that next available stitch into the base. We're going to insert with a slip stitch, and keeping in mind that this slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch, we just needed to connect it. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base as well. Flip our work. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and now we're going to be putting one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert into that back loop. Then yarn over and gently pull through everything. And that's it. Since we already know how to do our back loop slip stitches, continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3 so we can connect it into the base just once more. We are back and our first 1, 2, 3 rows are complete. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So just like how we did our previous row, we're going to find that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch to connect this row. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So just to do the first one, we're going to find the last stitch from our previous row, making sure we're not working into any of those slip stitches worked into the base. Insert into that back loop with a back loop slip, and continue with one back loop slip stitch into the rest of our stitches. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam everything up together. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to do our seam. So this seam is going to be done exactly the same way that we did our sides. So it's going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. So just to talk y'all through it, we're going to start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, then do our outside loop slip stitch seam so we don't have any more stitches left. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alrighty, so now that our mock neck is complete, we're ready to do our armhole detail. So this is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be done pretty much the same way that our mock neck was. So we're all going to start with a single crochet row. So we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole, and we're going to do a single crochet row. All we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row, 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. Then again, 1 single crochet into every side row. So let's just do the first few together. We're going to pull our working yarn through and start by finding our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet. This is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet again, and that's it. Like I said, we're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up and over, and then I'll meet you guys back once we made our way around and slip stitched into that chain space. Now we're going to get started on our slip stitch rows. So like I said, they're going to be done exactly the same way as our mock neck, so the only difference is possibly the length that we'd like for this underarm detail to be. I'd like for this to be just about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 6. Now since we already know how to do this part, all we're going to do is block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. Then continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly. Then when we're at the base, we're going to slip stitch it into that next available stitch into the base to connect. To work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip your work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And that's it. We're going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way up and around. When we don't have any more stitches left, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. Alrighty, so we are back. We made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows for our armhole detail. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so all we're going to do now is an outside loop slip stitch seam. So the same exact seam that we did for the sides and for the mock neck. So we're just going to make sure that our work is right side out, right side up, do our outside loop slip stitch seam until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we did here on the other side. Alrighty, so we are back. Our armhole details are all complete, and now we're going to get started on the bottom band. That's going to be done pretty much the same way, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. Let's all make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our piece. Then we're going to start with a single crochet row. So all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row and 1 single crochet into every stitch, and we're going to make our way all the way around. Now this single crochet row, once when it's finished, is going to be as wide as this piece can stretch. So once when it's completed and we've slip stitched into that chain space, be sure to try your piece on, making sure that this single crochet row can still fit around us. And then once when everything is fitting nicely, I'll meet y'all back. Alright, so now that our single crochet row along the bottom of our piece is complete, we're now going to do our bottom band, which is more slip stitch rows. So that's going to be done exactly the same way as our armhole detail and our mock neck, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. After we made sure that everything fits and we have slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10, then do back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, making sure that we're connecting it into the base the same way that we did for the mock and the armhole detail. When we've made our way all the way around, I will meet you guys back so we can seam it up together. We are back and our bottom band is complete. Now the next thing we're going to do is just seam it together, and this is actually going to be the same seam that we have done for the underarm detail and for the sides, so an outside loop slip stitch seam. We're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then just do our outside loop slip stitch seam so we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back to get started on the hood. Alright, so we are back. Now that our bottom band is complete, we're now ready to get started on our hood. So first things first, we are all going to need to insert our stitch markers where we'd like for the edge of our hood to be. And as you guys can see, we inserted our stitch markers into those available stitches that we left when we did our back loop single crochet row when we were getting started on our mock neck detail. Now this is going to be completely up to you. You can insert your stitch markers closer towards the middle or further out just like mine is, but I wouldn't suggest to bring it out further than the cable stitch detail just to make sure that it can sit on top of our shoulders comfortably without falling off. Now I have actually just inserted my stitch markers into the stitch that's right above my cable stitch detail, and this doesn't need to be any specific number. I just eyeballed it, and just as a reference for those of you that would like to know, I have a total of 14 stitches in between my stitch marker stitches. Then from here we're going to do a half double crochet row, and we're all going to need to insert our hook into the left stitch marker stitch because the alpine stitch detail that we're about to do for the hood isn't reversible. So getting started on our hood, we're all going to make sure that we're inserting our hook into the left stitch marker stitch. And then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook. We are then going to pull through, and only for this first row, our chain 2 is going to count as a stitch. So there's 1, there's 2. Then making sure that we're working around the back over to the other stitch marker stitch that we have, we're going to do a half double crochet row with increases into the 5th stitch. So like I said, our chain 2 only for this row is going to count as a stitch. So we're going to be doing 3 more half double crochets, and then we're going to increase into the 5th. So here's 1 half double. Here is 2. Here is 3. And then here is 4. Now, we should have 1, including our chain 2, 2, 3, 4, and into that 5th stitch, an increase of 2 half double crochets into the 5th stitch. So into that following stitch, insert with 1 half double, and then into that same stitch with a second half double crochet. And we're just going to continue on with this increase, making our way all the way around, so let's just do one more set of increases together. We're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So yarn over into that next stitch. There is 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then there's 4. Then an increase. So into that next stitch, there's 2 half double crochets into the same stitch, and that's it. We're going to continue on with this increase, making our way all the way around until we are worked into that following stitch marker stitch. Now, as a quick reference, this first row needs to end on an even number of stitches. So once we're worked into that stitch marker stitch, count out your stitches, making sure that it's an even number. If it is an odd number, go ahead and just add 1 extra stitch into that stitch marker stitch, and then I'll meet you back. We are back, and our first half double crochet row for the hood is complete. Now we have a second half double crochet row to do. So what we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around again. And don't forget to insert your last half double crochet into the top of that chain 2, because we should all end on the same even number of stitches. Then I'll meet you back. We are back. Our second row for our hood is complete, and now we're going to get started on our alpine stitch detail. So we're all going to start with a chain 2 and flip our work. We're all going to start with 1 half double crochet into that first stitch. So yarn over. Insert your hook into the first stitch with just 1 half double crochet. Then the next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet, and that will be worked into our previous odd number row, just like how our cable stitch alpines were. So yarn over, and finding that second half double crochet from our previous row, because remembering that we are counting that chain 2 as a stitch for that first row, we're going to bring your hook underneath the body of that half double crochet, through the other side, pull through, then again pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Let's do this just once more. Yarn over. Skip that following stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then half double crochet into the next, then a front post double, so yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch from our row 1 because this half double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the next, insert with a front post double crochet. And that's it for this row. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around, but I will meet you guys back when we have our last front post double crochet to do, and that last stitch should be a front post double crochet for everyone. Alright, so we are back. We made our way all the way around with our first alpine stitch row, and we have left that last stitch. Now it should be a front post double crochet for everyone, and just to make sure that this last stitch is connected down, we're going to do a front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet. And this is going to be how we're going to finish off every alpine stitch row that ends with a front post double crochet to ensure that we don't add any extra stitches by accident. So to do this together, we're all going to yarn over. Still working into our previous odd number row, we're going to insert our hook into that last stitch, yarn over and pull through, so everything is per usual so far. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're still going to pull up tall. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2. Then from here, when we have our 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row just to secure everything down. So into that stitch, let's go ahead and insert, yarn over and pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 4, and that is our front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet. As you guys can see, it still looks like a front post double, but it is secured down with that half double crochet portion. Then from here, our next row is going to be a half double crochet row, so chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So everyone's row 4 is complete, and now we're going to get started on our row 5's alpine stitch detail. So the details for this one is going to be done pretty much the same way that we did the alpine stitch detail for the body. So our stitches need to be staggered, so right after we do our chain 2 and flip, we're going to do the opposite from what our previous alpine stitch rows look like. So as you guys can see, my first stitch from my previous alpine stitch row was a half double. So now we're going to do a front post double crochet. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because that front post double crochet counts as that stitch. And into the next, insert with a half double, and that's it. We're going to continue with this, making our way all the way down. For this row, everyone's last stitch should be a regular half double crochet, and we should all have the same amount of stitches as our previous row. Then at the end of this row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then do a half double crochet row back. I'll meet you back when we have a total of these 6 rows completed, and then we can do the rest from there. We are back. Our first 6 rows are complete. And we're just going to continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we reach the top of our head. And I'll meet you back right after an alpine stitch row so we can seam everything together. Alright, so we are back and our hood is complete. I have a total of 47 rows. My height is roughly 14.5 inches or 37 centimeters, and now we're just going to seam it up together. Now this is going to be a single crochet seam. So we're going to start by flipping our work wrong side out so that this seam can be along the inside when it's worn. All we're going to do from here is insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, then we're going to yarn over, pull through, and do our single crochet row. So start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, find that next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and single crochet, and that's it. Let's do one more. Into the next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, and single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that our hood is all seamed up, we are all done. The last thing we have to do is now just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you all enjoyed the tutorial. Don't forget to join us on Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!